Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Tara Button, author of A Life Less Throwaway, The Lost Art of Buying for Life. Tara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You ready to get started?
Absolutely.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Gosh, well, there's so much advice I think that's needed. But what I would say is the hardest thing for sure when you're a first-time author, which means you don't have a contract, you have no deadline. It's all about the motivation and moving forward and constantly finding strategies to overcome inertia and procrastination. I must be like the world's expert of procrastination. I will literally, if I'm finding a bit of work hard, I will literally find anything to do, even if I don't particularly enjoy it, and end up kind of wasting hours and hours doing other stuff rather than the actual writing that I'm supposed to be doing. So finding what motivates you is really important. One thing that I did, which is potentially a little bit unusual but worked really well, was I found an app called Stick. If you imagine Stick written with 2 Ks, it's an online app. And the way it works is that you put in your goal, and that could be to lose weight or to quit smoking. But obviously for me, it was to write a certain amount of words per week. That's what I decided to use it for. And then it asks for your bank details, and you put them in. And essentially you need to nominate somebody that will verify that you have met your goal. So I chose my mother, and I said, you have to be really strict with me, and I have to send you 5,000 words a week. And if I don't, then this app will just take a certain amount of money from your bank account. You nominate how much it is. So I think I put £200, which might be like $250. And you can also nominate where you want that money to go to. So you can either choose a charity that you like or an organization that you like. I actually chose an organization that I didn't like for extra motivation. So I chose the Chelsea Football Club.
Oh, no.
My husband is a Arsenal supporter who are like the arch rivals of Chelsea as well. So the idea is essentially, if I don't get those 5,000 words written in that week and I don't send them to my mother, she doesn't tick the box saying that I've done it, and $250 comes out of my bank account and gets sent to a rival football club, essentially. So it worked a treat. I got 60,000 words written using that method. So I would highly recommend it. You don't necessarily have to use the app. Another thing I did was to kind of set up a similar situation with a friend of mine. I had to take a selfie of myself in my writing shed at 6 a.m. in the morning, every morning. Otherwise, I had to send £200 to the Trump campaign.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not a Trump supporter. So that wouldn't work necessarily if you were a Trump supporter. So, maybe it's all about choosing what works for you, whatever that is. And then I would also say, once you're on your groove, once you're getting that writing done, read your book out loud to yourself. I can't recommend anything better to making sure that your writing is actually flowing smoothly. And if you end up having to read your book out loud for an audiobook, like I had to, you'll be really, really glad that you read your book out loud while you were actually writing it, because it means that you can read it in a really flowy way. So that would be my advice.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Tara, I've interviewed over 60 guests on this show. That is the best answer I have ever heard for our first question. The Stick app, the accountability, and then the fact that you're willing to send $250 to your rival football club. I mean, I'm a Manchester United supporter, so that would be like me donating, $250 to Manchester City, which, I
Yes.
mean, that's just blowing my mind. The same thing for a lot of our listeners in the States. That would be like Cowboys fans donating $250 to New England Patriots or to the Philadelphia Eagles. That is such a great accountability hook, because the last thing you want to do is give anything to the arch rivals. So that is an absolutely brilliant idea. That definitely takes accountability to a whole new level, and quite frankly, a very painful consequence if you don't get it done. So you mentioned you did over 60,000 words.
Yeah. Well, I did 60,000 words with using the Stick app, and then when I had to write my nonfiction book, I used the situation where I was taking a selfie in my writing shed at 6 a.m. every morning, and that book was, I think when I handed it in, it was about 100,000 words. So it all got done, and it was all because of that accountability. And every author that I've spoken to in my network who has gone on to use this technique has said it works a treat. And actually, for people who have really struggled with motivation, it's been game-changing.
So it's called the Stick app, STICKK app. Is that correct?
I think that's right. Yeah, it's definitely Stick, and it's got 2 Ks at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am going to have to check that one out. That is very impressive. Well, let's talk about the flip side. So what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Staying sane. And I kind of mean that in a real way. I've got lots of author friends, and the mental anguish that we go through is real. People get depressed, people get lonely, people lose their confidence. When you're in that abyss where you're trying to write an idea and you have no idea whether the world is going to accept that idea, and you have no sense of having a deadline, or somebody's waiting for it, you're just kind of leaping out into the unknown. Just keeping your equilibrium, I think, is incredibly hard. So what I would recommend for that is actually putting together a visual motivation board of the things that remind you of why you're doing this. So that might be a particular thing that you're trying to get across in your writing, a particular idea, or it could just be about the kind of amazing, rich fantasy world, for example, that you're trying to create. Gathering together quotes from people that inspire you and putting them on the mood board, as well as kind of imagery that speaks to that motivated part of you. And then if you can link that to an alarm that goes up on your phone every day at the time that you're supposed to be writing, that can really help. I would also recommend daily mantras. And it's a bit of a cheesy, weird thing to do, kind of talk to yourself out loud. And as a British person, particularly, it's hard for me to do, because I think we're quite kind of stoic and we don't really like the idea. We kind of feel it's a bit kind of mumbo jumbo, but actually reminding yourself daily that you can do it, I think is potentially one of the most important things you can do.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Okay, so what I would say is, once that amazing day happens and you have your beautiful book in front of you and you're thinking about marketing, go through that book with a pencil or a highlighter, and work out kind of snippets and angles that you can use to sell in to all those amazing content providers all over the internet. So find bits of your book that might be of interest to other people that create content, and then offer it to them. So, for example, I offered a blog post to a company that talks about minimalism. So I wrote about how minimalism can create an uncluttered house and saves you money and stress. And it was all based on the theories inside my book, which was a new angle on minimalism. And I kind of sold it into a minimalism blog, and I was able to put a link to my book at the end. So that was really amazing, and we got a massive uplift on traffic because it was a really popular minimalist blog. And so I think really going into your book in detail and trying to see where all those multi-angled snippets of content are, and then expand upon them to create content that can then be kind of syndicated out, if you like, all across the web.
Yeah, that is a great way to repurpose content and to find those areas to elaborate. And it's just a great way to build promotion for your book. And even after your book is out there for a little while, just continuing to contribute those types of articles. It's just a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of one of our main PR strategies. Obviously, you can have giveaways. I talk about brands in my book, so actually brand collaborations as well. So we're actually doing brand giveaways along with the book. So we've got like sock manufacturers giving away free pairs of socks with my book, which is kind of odd. But, look for unusual pairings that where you might be able to give a book away with a product or a service if it's a kind of good brand match, because, people like being relevant. A new book coming out is a relevant thing. So always remember that the marketing department of companies are always looking for new angles too, and they'll be more than happy often to work with your publishing house, with their marketing department to do a collaboration.
And did you have your book traditionally published, or did you do it yourself?
It's traditionally published. It's with HarperCollins in the UK and 10 Speed, which is part of Penguin Random House in the US.
Excellent. Let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Well, I thought long and hard about this one, and I tried to come up with a book that perhaps is less well known. But I had to fall back on this one because it's just true. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone changed my life, and it's changed a lot of people's lives, but that doesn't make it any less true for me. I discovered this book while I was revising for my final A-level exams. So I think I had to get a D in my final maths exam to get an A overall, which would allow me to go to Cambridge University. And I discovered Harry Potter during that week of revision time that I had. And I didn't do any revision. I just read the books instead, and I got a D, which meant that I didn't manage to get an A overall. I didn't go to Cambridge, and I decided to become a writer instead of an architect. So the thing that I learned from Harry Potter is that essentially I could not imagine a more amazing way to spend your time than to create a fantastical world. And so I completely switched my route in life towards a world where I could do that full time. And I'm still working on that. But it just completely changed the route of my life. I can't imagine any higher pleasure really than inventing a fantastical world.
It's amazing the power of a book.
Yes.
Well, Tara, for a final question, let's talk about your favorite quote. So what is your favorite quote and why?
Okay, so this is a quote, and I didn't actually know who had come up with it. I had to look it up. Apparently, it is an Irish writer called Joanne Clancy, who I haven't actually read. But I came across this quote a couple of years ago, and it really spoke to me. In a way, it just kind of resonated me and went kind of, yeah, that's what I want to be like. So the quote is, "Be the kind of woman who, when your feet," sorry, I'll say that again. "Be the kind of woman who, when your feet hit the floor each morning, the devil says, 'Oh no, she's up.'" And I just love that. I think that sense that you could be a game changer, a world changer, somebody who makes a difference, and somebody with agency in the world who tries to make it a better place, who tries to leave the world a better place than when they came into it. That really speaks to me. And, I don't believe in Satan, but I love the imaginative power of that quote to kind of conjure a visual in my mind that there is this kind of evil force who's like, crap, now she's up and doing stuff to make the world a better place. I better watch out. And I just love that.
Yeah, I actually was able to see that in a post by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock of all people. He actually posted that quote on his Instagram, and I was just cracking up. I was like, that is such a great quote, because you're right. It's like, oh man, they're up. Time to go.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. I love it.
Well, Tara, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, if you're interested in buying for life, then go to buymeonce.com, which is my business, and there's loads of content on there about buying for life, lots of articles that I've written and my team have written. If you want to approach me as an author or a speaker, then simply go to tarabutton.com.
Well, Tara, I want to thank you once again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
My pleasure. Great speaking to you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.